morning on Wednesday, the 22nd of November. This is our weekly investor webinar. Good morning, Stuart.
Buenos dias, Marcos. Ahora
Buenos
todo.
dias. Don't cry for me, Argentina. That's what we'll be talking about. They elected a hardcore capitalist. So let's talk about that in a sec.
Right.
Before we do that, NVIDIA, as everyone who watches this webinar will know, we keep a close eye on that. They have blowout quarterly numbers just coming out an hour ago. Way better than expected, so that was good. Market is still down after hours for some reason. People are just, I don't know what your experience is, Stuart, but these numbers were so good, better than everyone was expecting, and still the market is selling, right? So it's
Right.
It's very hard to predict what the market will do in these uncertain times. But what is a bit easier to predict probably is the fate of the Argentinian lithium miner, Stuart. Talk us through what's happening in Argentina at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about what's happened to Argentina. In fact, I brought my Argentine flag here to celebrate.
Right.
Is
there a country that you don't have a flag of, Stuart? Or?
There are some of the really obscure ones, but I like to collect flags. That's one of my hobbies.
Right.
I've got some unusual flags, Mark. Unusual hobbies, I should say.
You know who else does that? Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, right? He's got the show Fun with Flags. Maybe you should start something like that in Australia.
Let's turn back to Argentina before this escalates. So Argentina just had an election, and the outcome was truly unusual. Ordinarily, Argentina, or in most democracies in the world, elect parties in the center or mildly centered to the left or the right. And the left tends to garner more votes because they're perceived to be more compassionate. For probably the first time in history, a hardcore anarcho-capitalist named Javier Milei has just been elected president of Argentina. Now, I think that's got huge implications for a lot of things, but amongst other things for a few ASX-listed companies. So let's talk about the recent election that Argentina has just had. So 19th of November was the runoff election between Javier Milei and his left-wing rival Sergio Massa of the ruling Peronist party. And Milei won conclusively 56-44. So he gets sworn in as Argentina's new president on December 10. Argentina is a not insignificant country in terms of its size. It's one of the largest countries geographically in the world. There are something like 46 million people live in Argentina. So you turn around a basket case economy like Argentina, there are implications for the world economy generally. So as I said before, Milei is an anarcho-capitalist. Mark, have you ever met an anarcho-capitalist before?
I've never met them. I've heard of narco-capitalists. So the people in Bolivia and Colombia.
There's a few of those in Argentina as well. But I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I believe that we shouldn't vote on things, that businessmen should just run things and there should be a minimum of regulation. That's the anarcho bit. And we're both capitalists. So one of those guys, without having to lie to the public, has just got elected as president of a pretty large country. So amongst the campaign provinces, they're going to ditch the Argentine peso in favor of the US dollar. They're going to abolish the central bank so that the central bank can't print any more money. Shrink the welfare state, shut down government spending by about 15%. Public works will be farmed out to the private sector. Mark, this is a miracle. We've actually got the kind of president you and I could vote for running Argentina.
This is going to be a very interesting experiment, Stuart. If they adopt the US dollar, well, technically the central bank is there to maintain price stability, right? Right. But if you have no influence over that anymore, you've got the government basically being the only one being responsible for prices through fiscal policy. Right. So this is going to be a very interesting experiment if he actually does it, right? Because it's a big step.
There are other economies that have dollarized, and I draw your attention to the fact that Singapore does not actually have a central bank. They have a monetary authority whose sole purpose is to maintain the stability of the Singapore dollar. So versions of this have been tried before. This is the largest country in the world ever to have experimented with what we're about to have. So yeah, I'll be very interested to see how that works out. But let's talk about the implications. No surprises as to why Argentina has done this. It's a basket case economy. Inflation got up to about 140%. And Mark, chalk us up as prophets. We predicted this 4 years ago when the outgoing president was elected, or when it was flagged that he would win the election back in 2019. We even did a video about this in our former Friday Beers podcast, where we talked about certain countries having a quality. The word starts with S and ends with whole. And we flagged that Argentina would go that way. Well, prediction came true. Buenos Aires became during COVID, the most locked down city in the world. Melbourne came in at number 2. So inflation's gone up to 140%. 40% of Argentina is now living in poverty, which is bad. Now, the good news is Argentina is now open for business. Lithium, as we'll talk about in a second, is a major export industry. It can expect a flood of new capital as people invest in this country, a little surer than they were before, that they're not going to be expropriated by some left winger. But Argentina isn't just lithium. They've got a lot of other metals as well, including gold. There's a few ASX listed companies kicking around looking for gold in Argentina. And importantly, it's got the second largest reserves of shale gas and shale oil. They're worked by a state-owned company called YPF. And it's flagged that company could privatize. So you could see opportunities in the energy sector. Now, it could all come unstuck. President-elect Milei's party doesn't have many seats in the Argentine Congress, so we might have to do some deals to get stuff done. But we're talking about a country that's going from being a basket case to potentially being a powerhouse, where it's very easy to invest in what is some very exciting industries in Argentina. And probably the most important of all is lithium. That flag you can see on the right there is the lithium triangle. Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina all share the Andes mountain ranges. And high up in the Andes, you get these very prolific brines that are rich in lithium. You just got to pump the brines to the surface, dry them out, and then do some secondary processing, and you've got very low-cost lithium at a time when the world needs something like 7 or 8 more lithium than it has now by about 2030. Argentina is sitting pretty because it's got the second largest lithium reserves. We're talking reserves here. What's yet to be discovered and developed is another story. So 60,000 tons, and with all the projects that are currently on the drawing board, you could potentially quadruple that in the next few years without trying too hard. Now, the reason why foreign investors have persisted in a basket case like Argentina is Argentina runs a federal system of government. The provincial governments in the northwest of Argentina are quite pro-mining. So it's possible to get stuff done by talking to the provincial governments up there. And in fact, that hasn't hindered projects going forward. Now you've got a free marketeer running things at the federal level. It'll probably make it easier for foreign investment to come in and actually grow some of these projects, where foreign investment was probably a bit scared about what would go on. So good times for Argentina right now. A lot of ASX listed companies that's relevant for, and I've listed a few of them there on the left-hand side of the screen. Recently met with Power Minerals, for example. There's a map there on the right there showing Power Minerals project in Salta provinces, which is one of those 3 northwestern provinces that's rich in lithium. They recently announced a big upgrade in the size of their resource in Salta. They've now got about 715,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So rapidly growing a resource at the time when this country is now open for business. That's got to be very good for that company. But there are many others, as you can see there, and I encourage you to go check out a look at some of these. The one I want to focus on, if we go to the next slide, I've talked about previously, and that's Galan Minerals. I think Galan Lithium. I think I made a mistake there on the heading. Galan, they're working on a particular project called Hombre Muerto Salar. Salar are the dry salt lakes that you find the lithium underneath. Hombre Muerto means dead man. I don't know why they call it dead man, but what's not dead is the potential size of this project. You can see there from the definitive feasibility study, they've put a value on it of about 460 million after tax. Only requires about 104 million in capex to get started, which is small in the scheme of things. And the company has staged the growth of the various lithium projects they've got on the board. They can stage the growth of this project over time. So by the end of the decade, if all goes well, they can expand this all the way up to 60,000 tons a year, which, as we noted before, is about the entire output of lithium from Argentina right now. Relatively undervalued. You can buy it for a market cap of just 238 million, of which 33 million is cash. And importantly, they've just got an offtake deal with Glencore, the big commodities trading firm. So that just makes it a little bit easier to get this project developed. And they're expecting to have it up and running by about 2025. The handsome-looking man there on the top right-hand side of the screen is Juan Pablo Vargas de la Vega. Now, can you think of a more Latin-sounding name than that, Mark? That's why we call him JP. His name is just too long to pronounce for us Aussies. So JP is
that's you abbreviate everything, so it's not really fair.
Right. JP's from Chile. He spent a few years in Western Australia as an equity analyst before he put Galan together and listed on ASX. It was a microcap when Mark and I were first introduced to him in 2019. Well, now he's off and running with Hombre Meto Solar. We talked about him back in July when I was focusing on lithium because he'd just been buying some stock in his company, and not any stock, a fair bit of it. So if you go to the next slide, here's the chart for Galan. And the arrow there was when he bought. So the stock continued to go down there for a while. No surprises there. Lithium has been slightly off the boil. Argentina just went from basket case to basket case. That stock has recently started to re-rate, so I think he's in the money on some of the stock that he bought back in July. As you can see, it's been a long slide down for Galan since early 2022. I think the spotlight will be in a lot of these companies, so folks, sit up and pay attention.
All right, good stuff. And we just published an article on lithium as well. So have a look at the stocks on their website under articles. You'll find some background on pricing in 2024, and there's some mixed views on that by the big banks. But yeah, the consensus is that first bit in the next 6 months or so will still be a bit weak, but it's definitely the long-term trend is very much up. So let's keep an eye on that. All right, that was Argentina. Now let's move to another stock that we've been wrong about. Well, we haven't been wrong about lithium or about Argentina too, but this stock that we're talking about now, we've been very wrong on, like many people. So here we go.
Yeah, Appen has been the Argentina of the tech sector, it's fair to say.
Yeah. That's a good comparison, I think, because if you look at the chart, we'll have a look at that in a sec. It's come all the way down to I think 95 cents on the close before they announced a couple of days ago a cap raise, 30 million cap raise, which I think will take the share price down to 55 cents. So at that level, should you buy Appen, or is this a dead bird walking? Let's have a look. So this is the chart. You can see the peak there above $42 at late 2020, and after that point, they started to flag that some of their big customers, they haven't specified which ones specifically were cutting back, but it's safe to assume that companies like Facebook, Microsoft have scaled back investments in the work that Appen does for them, which is sort of tagging of all sorts of data by humans. Actually, it's a very much a manual labor type thing that they're doing, tagging all sorts of data to help AI models, artificial intelligence models, learn. Now, it's been very good business up to 2020, but it came down after that, especially when online advertising took a hit. All of a sudden, some of these big tech names had less to spend on training these AI models, and of course, as has been well documented, interest rates have gone up tremendously, and so that hasn't helped the share price either. And in 2023, the stock went into cash burning mode again. They were EBITDA positive before that, but that trend has reversed. And so, yeah, add all that up, and that's a recipe for this dramatic decline in the share price from 42 cents to 95 cents pre the cap raise that was announced a couple of days ago. So, look at this chart. This is a more short-term one, about a year and a half old. But you can definitely see that continued downtrend. And the blue line and the red circle is where the cap raise is being done, 55 cents. And so that's substantial dilution, 35%. And the new market cap, including these new shares, will be 116 million. So you could argue, well, look, it's come all the way down, and so it might actually be interesting at the moment again. And well, that remains to be seen, and then we'll talk about that as well. But before we look at that, the company is expected by analysts to become EBITDA positive again. They burned about 38 million in EBITDA this year, and it is expected to be a small positive number in 2024, which starts on the 1st of January. And based on that and the market cap, you can see a valuation there of 11.8 times for 24 and 3.5 times for 25. And you could argue, well, that's really low, right? Especially given that if you look at the numbers, EBITDA growth is expected to take off from 2024 again. But we're a bit cautious with this. At the bottom here, you can see the latest numbers that the company's put out. These are unaudited numbers for the past few quarters. And of course, you can see the EBITDA numbers improve in the last couple of quarters based on cost cutting, for one. But revenue is still pretty much flat. And year over year, it's gone down more than 29%. Year to date, that is for the current financial year. So it's not looking very good. And as the company admitted
frankly, this is making Argentina look respectable, Mark.
Yeah, look, maybe there's maybe a few lessons to learn here for Appen. The big thing here is, in my book, is that the customers are still reducing their spending, right? So these big tech names are not really ready to increase spending with Appen, which means that the estimates for next year and the year after are still, make sure that you've got your eraser with you and write these estimates with a pencil, and be sure to you can correct them really quickly, because it can be a lot lower than people are thinking right now. So you could say, look, 55 cents after cap raise, once all these shares have been absorbed, that's probably the share price level that we're going to see. Is that a good entry point? Could be, but technically Appen is still very much in a downtrend. So if you're taking a punt on this one, just take a small position and realize that you could lose it all, right? This is a very high risk punt. So make sure that you set a tight stop loss, and stop losses are different for everyone, but at least make sure that you don't ride it all the way down, even if you get in at 55 cents. And take it from us. We've learned it the hard way. If you remember, Stuart, we were bullish on Appen around $14, but we rode it all the way down to 10 and later on to 7, because we didn't set a very tight stop loss on that one. So take it from people who learned it the hard way.
A lot of learnings here. Basically, if a stock's in a downtrend, it will continue in a downtrend until it moves into an uptrend. And obviously, we were evaluating this from a fundamental perspective. We got the fundamentals wrong. So, mea culpa from me in terms of the trouble with an analyst like me is, if you're optimistic about everyone all the time, you're going to lose money sometimes. And this is a classic example of that. The learnings is, look at these things not through rose-colored glasses, but with a healthy dose of realism.
Yeah, and just put everything that can go wrong into the numbers, because they probably will go wrong. Right. High risk. Make sure you get your stop loss right, and don't be like us with this one. That's basically the message. Anything else, Stuart, before we wrap up?
So go check out what's going on in Argentina. Could be a very happy hunting ground for a lot of companies.
All right, good stuff. We'll see you all next week.
See ya.